family if you want to, but really, what do you do? Like, what is your work? So when Gina and Sandy and I were thinking about like what this should look like, we wanted to make sure it looked like everybody in the room. Because we have some moms in here who are working full-time, some more moms working part-time, some moms like me that don't get paid for working, but I feel like I'm working 24/7. And it's such an interesting thing. I know for me, I feel like I get asked that question a lot. What do you do? And I used to say, I'm just a mom, like when I first had my kids. And then I thought about myself and I'm like, I'm not just a mom. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend. I also do a lot as a mom. And so now I think people have learned not to ask what I do because then I will give you a litany of everything I do all day. So we just wanted to make sure we had a wide spectrum of moms who are working from home, out of the house, with their kids, because that represents all of us, because we are all working moms. So if each one of you could give your name and then a little bit about what you do, and that would be great. Microphones. Do we have?
I could start and then
Perfect.
just hand it down.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Gurak. I am married to my husband Dave. We have a son named William, he's 5, and one on the way. I am a talent manager for social media influencers. I have worked full-time doing my current job in the past, but right now it's more part-time. And I've had my business for about 7 years now.
Hi, I'm Amy Almeida. I'm married to Brian, and I have a 4-year-old Kason and a 2-year-old Everly. And I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I also have a side hustle. I have a sourdough micro bakery. So right now, it's one day a week. It's like a porch pickup, and I do like 7 to 10 to 15 loaves depending on the week. But yeah.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Schneidman. I'm married to Andrew. We have 2 daughters, Natalie, who's 2, and Claire, who's 8 months. I am a singer, and I'm a worship leader at my church, and I sing all throughout the tri-state area, doing gigs, and I also give teaching lessons out of my house, and I've been giving lessons for about a year now.
Hi, my name is Stella Osai-Chung. I'm married to Eric. We have 2 17-year-olds and 1 11-year-old and 3 8-year-olds. I stay home. I'm a stay-at-home mom and a business owner. I do health coaching and weight loss coaching. I also make fresh, organic pineapple juice, hibiscus tea, and I also make shea butter with essential oils.
It's amazing for winter.
Yes. Hi, I'm Michelle Cortazzo. I'm married to Chris, and I have 1 son, Giovanni, who's 4 years old, and I'm a pharmacy consultant for a consulting firm. And I work full-time, and I work remotely, so I work at my house.
Hi, I'm Marissa Ryan. I'm married to Justin, and we have a 3-year-old boy named Theo. I've been a registered nurse for 8 years, working primarily in maternity. So my role kind of takes me a couple different places. I do 2 days a week in a local hospital doing postpartum telehealth visits with new moms. I'm also a lactation consultant. I have a private practice doing home visits in the area. And then I also do text-based support for a company doing like remote texting, yeah, basically. So a couple different things.
My name is Katie Robinson. I'm married to Christian. I have a son, Christian Jr. He's 3, and then this is Avery. Hello. She is almost 6 months old. I'm also a nurse. I'm a patient care director / nurse manager at New York Presbyterian Hospital at their Weill Cornell campus. Currently on maternity leave. I go back in 2 weeks. I'm not very excited. But it's a good job in the sense that they do have some work-life balance. I can work either 4 days a week or I can work 5 with 1 remote day. So that's what I do.
Hi, I'm Sandy. I'm married to my husband Rob. We have 3 boys, 10, 6, and this guy who is knocked out currently. I am a licensed and trained a pediatric occupational therapist. That is my main occupation. I work right now 3 days a week. I have my own company, so I work private practice, home to home. And then I have a little side business, the pumpkin. But I actually usually like my take home product is our tree ornaments. So my husband and I started cutting pieces of our Christmas trees when we were first married, and we would dry them, and then I would paint them for the year that we were married. And then one year we're like, we're just gonna collect Christmas trees from everyone in our town, and we're gonna make each person in our town an ornament from their own Christmas tree. So that was like 2019, and it went crazy. It was a lot of Christmas trees in my backyard, in my garage. And it ended up like supplying us with wood that I'm still getting through, because I think we get like 50 ornaments out of every Christmas tree. So that started, and I have done a couple of like shops here at actually our wonderful market. And then it kind of took off, and I've been doing markets and that kind of thing. It's just a little side thing that I do after the kids go to sleep. As the bedtimes are getting later, my work hours are getting later. So I'll find myself at midnight painting pumpkins, so. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so the first question is for anyone who has taken a break and then re-entered the workforce, either full-time, part-time, side hustle, because I know a lot of us in the room are in that situation. How did you decide to go back to work, to turn a passion into a job? And is it in the same thing you were doing before you had kids?
Oh, sorry. So I'll speak quickly and then give somebody else a chance. So I actually, from my OT role, I took a year off after each time I had a child, except for my first and second. And then for him, I only took 3 months, but that's because I was into private practice. For the first 2, I was working at a clinic, and the hours were longer, and that kind of thing. So I think it's just really important, like the work-life balance, especially when you're, dealing with like the little people in your life. But it just felt right to me. I was nursing, and I was just waiting to feel, the right feeling in order to separate from them for the first 2. And for him, I didn't have that feeling because it was less pressure, because I owned my business at that time. And then as far as the passion thing, that's something that I'm always keeping in check, like especially with like the artistic business. Like I actually went to school for fine art initially, and I ended up changing to healthcare because I felt like it was draining my passion for what I was doing. And so it's reignited in the other business that I have now, and I'm always telling my husband, like, I have to keep a passion for this, like in whatever way it needs to be done. That way, it's like I have a driver behind it.
So for me, I didn't mention that I'm a trained journalist and then a population health scientist. That was what I did before I became a stay-at-home mom. And then I took care of my mom the past year until she passed in August. And after her burial, I was looking desperately for something to distract me, and God brought somebody into my life just randomly, who happens to be, I think, the executive director of Eastwick Foundation. And so we chatted, and I said I wanted to do something to distract me. And she's like, oh, come work with me. And the exact role that she gave me was writing and like everything that I was doing in academia before I became a stay-at-home mom. And I feel like it's divine because I haven't worked in like outside of home for 12 years. And there were seasons when I felt I was resting and I was grieving that I wouldn't even be able to get back into doing what I loved doing. And like in the spur of the moment, God just connected me. And although it's a volunteering position, I love the fact that I've been able to go back in a way just to prove that what I did all these years was not like a digression or anything like that.
For me, it kind of happened on accident, to be honest. I got into sourdough in 2020, as probably maybe some of you did. I killed my starter, and I was like, I'm never doing that again. I had my baby at that time too, my firstborn, and I was like, I cannot I can't commit to that and do that. And then something happened after I had my daughter where I was like, oh, I'll try it again. And I bought a starter from somebody that I saw online. I was like, let me just try it. And I like kept doing it over and over, and I felt like confident. I was like, okay, I got it. And then all of a sudden I was like, I was talking to my husband and I was like, why don't I just put it out there? Like, I don't know, maybe somebody wants to buy fresh sourdough. So I put it on my Instagram story and I got some feedback, and then it kind of just turned into what it is now a year later. So it was a passion, but I didn't think it was going to turn into what it is now. So I would just say, just put it out there. If you have a passion, people will receive it, and they like, when people make stuff from home, and they can see that, the love behind it.
So along with that, one of the questions that we received was how you actually monetize something like that. So say I'm really crafty and I create something, which I do not, but how would I, if I could, how would I actually monetize it when I don't know how to run a business? I don't know how to, I feel like I'm old. I don't know how to use social media. Thank you, Emily. So how do you actually get the word out there? I know you said your Instagram stories, but are there other apps or websites or something if anybody here has a passion that they would like to turn into a business?
For sourdough, they have or for food in general, there's Hot Plate is what it's called, where people can actually go and select what they want and order, and then you get paid through that. I think there is a fee if you pay, through that. But as for other apps, I mean, word of mouth, I feel like is a big way that people heard about me. There's some people that I'm like, who is this? This one girl, Shelby, ordered 10 loaves of bread for me. And I'm like, who is Shelby? I love her though. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like word of mouth is first and foremost just getting it out there, doing things like markets where you can put yourself out there, make yourself uncomfortable, which is something that I'm trying to do, is just talk to people,
I agree with word of mouth, and also put yourself out there. Offer your services for free to start. As a singing teacher, that's what I did. I went to my town. We were having a Allendale day, and I got a booth, and I was advertising my services. I was singing on the side, no charge. I was providing music for the event, and then I was able to get sign-ups and offer discounts when you first start. I offer the first lesson is free, and then if you sign up for a package, it's discounted. So I would just say, put yourself out there, show up. Don't expect to make money right away. There's going to be some losses in the beginning, but just keep going and just offer your service. Be like, I'll be that girl. I made it a goal. I'm the town singer. So a year later, I'm known as the town singer. I sing at the bars, at the parks, at the churches. Anywhere you turn, there I am singing. So just make it known, put yourself out there, and the rest will follow.
Thank you. Okay, so you're all doing something that is taking time away from your family. So talk to us about how you're able to let go of any guilt or sorrow that, oh my gosh, I should be spending more time doing this, or taking care of the house. What are some tips for someone who's looking to go back to work or looking to do a side hustle on the side that you can give to let us know that it's actually good for us to have our own thing?
I know for myself, before I had children, you gonna talk too? I put 110% into my job. I made it my identity, and ever since I had children, I have made it a priority to put my children first. So instead of staying late for work, it's no, tomorrow the job can be done tomorrow. Sorry, is it too loud for you? So a lot of it is that prioritization of I'm sorry, like I said before, my children come first. And if there's work, for the weekend, or if there's work for I'm sorry. I even lost my train of thought. But ultimately, my whole point is there's a huge difference you'll find yourself to if you're going back to work of what effort you put into your job before and then the effort that you put in now that you have children. So it's really like a mindset change. And then I also know too, like with the home responsibilities, my husband also works full time, and we have the understanding that, you know, the house is going to be messy and we'll pick a day and that'll be our cleaning day, or we have to prioritize, you know, I'm not a meal prepper, I'm the worst cook in the world, so it's like I can't meal prep, but you know, we'll try our best, we'll alternate, we'll take turns who's cooking, we'll do pizza one night, you know, it's kind of, you make that balance with each other so that you can also have, you know, that functional life when you get home, and then also putting work aside when you get home and focusing on the family, I think is very important, because my husband and I are both, you know, nurse managers, and a lot of times we're getting phone calls at 8 o'clock at night, like, oh, what's my schedule for my next shift? It's like turning that phone off and, you know, being present for our children. And we've had to tell each other that, like, no phones at the dinner table, no, you know, like, we don't need to read that email right now, you know, so a lot of that work-life balance is so important, and I think a lot of organizations now too are practicing that, because that's a big conversation I know at my organization of, you know, making sure that you have your personal life separate from your work, so I hope that answered that.
I would add that there are seasons. And so I think the advantage in working for yourself or working at home is being able to shift things around. And so there's sometimes that it tilts more towards work, and then other times it tilts more towards family. But bringing everyone on board and letting them understand what you're doing is helpful. And then I think you also tend to have the benefit, if I can put it that way, of being able to make sacrifices that you wouldn't be able to do when you're working for somebody else.
Kind of just jumping off of that, like just having a partner that's invested in what you're doing. Like my husband, like he just dives in with the whole crafting thing. He's actually like, oh, we could do this more efficiently. We could do this. Oh, let's get this machine. I'm like, then I'm not hand painting. So now you're killing my passion. Like, you know, like I'm like, oh, that's like where the check is. But not only him, but like we've really tried to include the kids. So on couple markets I've had here, like my oldest comes and he's like my sales director. He's like, okay, like you could get this or 2 for this. I'm like, okay, Julian. All right. But like they're invested too. They're like, oh, mom, you're going to like a crafting this weekend. Like, oh, can we help you pack the car? Like they get into it. So it's fun because I don't feel like really I'm going like, at night when I'm painting them at midnight, yes, I am choosing to choose a time when they are not around, but I do feel like they're fully invested in the idea of me going out and doing something else, and like they come with sometimes too, so that makes it a little easier. That's not the case for some jobs that you can't bring your kids with you, but for that little like side thing, it's kind of fun, and it's nice to feel like the investment from the rest of the family.
I think, Katie, you gave us a nice segue into another question that was submitted of how do you handle household chores as a working mom? And there was another one about, do you and your spouse share household responsibilities? Or I know some of us live with parents or in-laws or have them close by. So what does that look like for your family?
So my husband and I, we both work from home, and I do most of the chores just because I'm a type A person and don't really want to explain, but now his role is, his office is in the basement, so he calls himself the laundry troll because that's where our washer and dryer is. And he's now slowly taken on that responsibility of doing the laundry. But I think because I'm a type A person, I don't let go, and that's one thing, is just to communicate and know that at the end of the day he does want to help, and you know, I need to let go of some of those things and teach him how to clean and whatnot. But yeah, I think just the communication is good, because it is a lot, especially if you're working and taking care of kids. And I think it should be, you know, distributed between husband and wife.
I'm also, well, I was also a type A person, but I'm a convertee after having 3 children. It's like basically a huge relinquishing of expectations. The 3rd child, I didn't realize that. It's like, okay, I can't do this anymore. But I will say, like, I have started to accept that there is a evolution of things that kind of happens, like in marriage and a partnership with chores and like, things that like I always used to do, like all of a sudden I'm like noticing my husband's like, oh, he's doing that more, and I'm like, ooh, I probably wasn't doing that enough times, and then he was like, oh, she needs help. So I think just being open to the fact that like things will flex and change and kind of evolve as like the needs change, and like being okay with that, because I also I like certain things, like shirts have to be folded a certain way and like get a little bit antsy about things like that, but I've slowly like starting to kind of give some of that stuff up as time goes on. Hopefully that's
I'm glad that your husband picked up on that, because I have to explicitly ask in a note, email, text, can you please empty the dishwasher? So I love that. And I just want to point out, anyone who is not working outside the home, you too should be asking your spouse for help, as my husband now 10 years later realizes that he also has to chip in with the chores. So I just figured I'd add that in there, because you know, those kids are hard all the time.
you might just not look desperate enough.
I will work on that.
I wanted to add that it gets a little easier when the children get older, and so delegation comes in. And, yes. So you have to assign them to certain chores, and that takes the responsibility off you and your spouse.
So what are some specific things? I know you said like no phones at the dinner table, or some very practical, specific things that either you or your husband have implemented, or someone else that may help you around the house, if you have nanny or babysitter or anything, like that we can walk out of here and actually implement today, that just frees up some of your time, you know, to focus elsewhere than just on the kids or the house.
So for us and our family, just because the nature of my work kind of changes week to week depending on patients that I'm going to see. My son also has some special needs, so we're just always consistently jumping from like one thing to another with therapy with him. The family calendar has been huge for us. We have a calendar up on the wall in our bedroom that's just color coded, and every week I go in and put in, you know, my appointments, my son's appointments, things for my husband, because what I've realized over the years with my husband is that he needs that like kind of black and white sort of in front of his face in order to see where the things are, like where there is the slack that he can kind of pick up, and like what kind of practical things are going on day to day.
I think of a few practical things. One is, I feel like when my son was first born and I was working at the same time, I didn't really have help, which I do not recommend doing both. But I literally couldn't make myself lunch. Like I was like, what do I do for lunch? How do I feed myself? And I was speaking to a friend and she's like, make a huge pot of soup on like a Sunday. And that's something that I still do to this day. So I make like a huge pot of soup on Sunday, and that's kind of what I eat all week for lunch. That just makes it super easy. I don't have to think about it. It's kind of like off my like brain. And if I make something that my son likes too, that can be his lunch during the week too, that I can pack for preschool. My husband and I also have like a shared note on our phone, and it's just like a grocery list. And we have different stores like on that list. So it's like Whole Foods, ShopRite, and like if I think of something that I need, I immediately put it on that shared note. And then whoever goes to the grocery store next just picks up all those items on the list, which has been like super helpful to us, because I feel like in the moment he'll text me and be like, hey, I'm going to ShopRite, what do we need? And I'm like, I have no idea, but having this shared note has been a lifesaver for us. Do you it's on an iPhone. We have iPhones, and I think there's a way to like invite someone to through the note section.
Emily, can we get a tutorial on that?
It comes up the top shirt.
There you go, you're sharing notes already. So that's really helpful, and then something else is just like, I'm always thinking of food. When it's like, oh, what do we do for dinner? Like, I'm not really a meal prepper, but I like kind of plan throughout the week. But I'll just have a note in my phone too that just says like weeknight meal ideas, and I just keep like a running list in there. And then I can just like quickly refer to be like, hey, what are like crowd pleasers that I can make, you know, this week? Because then sometimes I feel like I'm just like, I don't know, my mind kind of goes like into this space, like what am I gonna cook? But just having a list in front of me is really helpful, and I can just reference at any time.
I think for me it's been a mindset thing. I was told a few years ago that when the children grow up, they don't remember how clean your house looked, and that they remember how much time they spent with you and all the things they did with you. And that was very helpful because with 6 children, it gets really, really messy. And I found myself like in a state of, I don't know what it looked like, but it was crazy. I was always screaming, picking on the floor, didn't you see it? You know, all that. And I had to work my way into accepting that this is a season. And so there's some things that you can overlook and that doesn't kill anybody. That was very helpful.
I love that you guys are giving me natural segues. So some specific tips for holding things together when you just feel so overwhelmed and behind. I think every single one of us in the room has probably felt like that multiple times this week. So like what are some tips that, whether it's a way to relax or, I don't know, some specific things that you do when you know I have work on the brain and I have kids on the brain and I have my partner on the brain, and like some tips for us to hold ourselves together so we don't lose it when the kids trash the house. Besides the mindset, because I think, Stella, that's definitely an important tip.
I mean, I'm gonna double down on Lindsay's list idea, and like I just make lists of things. I'm just like, okay, work list. What do I need to do? This eval, this whatever, treatment plan, write it down. Okay, and then next list. Okay, what am I doing? Craft area, like, you know, craft thing, household. And I just make lists, and then like, you know, everyone knows that everyone's done it before. When you cross those things off, whew, I'm like, yes, give me that thick red pen, right through it, and it's good. So I don't know. That's like what makes me feel like I'm actually doing things. Even though I might feel like I'm all over the place, I'm not like really getting anything done because I feel like I'm spread so thin throughout, but just like a slow thing. And the relaxation part of it, I think just picking things that fill your soul, right? Like there's giftings that you've been given by the Lord. There's certain avenues in which like you will find your greatest joys. Like for me, it's just like listening to worship music and painting, or listening to worship music and being in the garden. Like those two things for me, they're just like instant rechargers for me. And I could do it for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, like whatever. I just go outside, look at a bumblebee and like be listening to like Lauren Daigle. And I'm like, yep, good. And like go back inside and like there's like chaos like inside. I'm like, I'm good now, you know? So it's just like finding those things that like give you the biggest bang for your buck on like joy and like recharge. And like, you know, after you do that, and like if you do something, you're like, whoa, like this. I did like a forest therapy like a few weeks ago, and that was like not a good bang for the buck because it was like an hour and a half long and like away from my family. But like afterwards I was like, whoa, like okay, like did I just get like 5 years younger for a second? Like really was a really big recharge. So I'm like, okay, like maybe like once every 5 months, like I need to do this, you know? But just make a mental note or make a list of like things like, hey, when I do that, like that made me feel really good or whatever. Recharge.
I would say if you can, spend the money. If you need to get a cleaning lady once every couple months, spend the money. If you need to buy dinner or buy meals for one whole day, like look how much it's going to help you and just ease your mind. I wouldn't say all the time, but sometimes I would say give yourself that flexibility, and it's not all the time, and don't feel guilty about it.
And I'll add that sometimes simple things like breathing, I just found out more recently that just taking deep breaths can bring me from a certain level down. And then I have always learned to just pour my essential oils on my crown. Like wearing them helps, but when I get to that place where I'm needing to scream, I just put it on my crown and then it grounds me.
So Sandy kind of answered this one a little bit, but how do you find your passion for work each day? When you wake up and not making that phone call, like I quit because there's just not enough of me. So what keeps you going with your job, with your passion, with a side hustle each day?
I think you just have to really enjoy what you're doing. So like I really love my job, which is not the case all the time, but I'm thankful that I do. So I'm always learning and things like that. And I think if maybe you're in a job that you don't care for, it's not bringing joy to your life, maybe see if there is something else that does, because, you want to feel that happiness and everything. And I luckily I do feel that with my job.
And I also think part of it too is for work for myself, it kind of brings me back to like my identity of before mom, before being a wife. Like I'm also kind of so fortunate to be in the position of loving my job. I've really built my career up to a point where at this point I have a lot of flexibility and autonomy in what I do. But, I think being home in the mundane sometimes day after day can kind of be its own kind of stress. And for me, the mindset shift of like almost being able to go to work and work with families, teach families about their newborns, is like a break in a way, because it allows me to just kind of go back to my roots and the things that I love, and also just being able to like connect with other adults instead of a screaming 3-year-old.
I would say to always remember that it's not about us at the end of the day, that God has blessed us with these giftings and has given us all these different passions, and it's to serve others and to bless the next generation, and it's to share what you've been blessed with. We're not supposed to keep it to ourselves, so just keep that at the forefront. That'll keep you going, that you are serving God with your gifts and blessing others. So that kind of keeps me going. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm really tired, I don't want to give this lesson. But then when, I have a little girl coming in telling me all about her day, and I'm able to speak life into her, and it makes it all so worth it. So just keep going and remember that it's not about us.
And for me, I've had the burden of understanding that what I do, like she said, it's not for me, it's to help others. And there's a lot of misconception about the health system and how to take care of yourself. And so knowing that a lot of people don't know so much about preventative health makes me just get up and want to share as much as I can, and bringing them to that place where they understand that they can do very simple things that are cost effective to be able to own their health.
If you could look back at how you decided to either continue working throughout having kids, going back to work, taking on a passion project, and change something or re-navigate it somewhere to make it easier, to lessen the burden in a way. Anybody have a suggestion for anyone who's in the position of navigating those waters?
I think for a while when I was trying to formulate what I was going to be, that's pretty loaded. But like what I was going to do as my career, like I'm talking about way back in college. Like I first thought I was going to be an architect because I could do like math and art. I was like, math and art equals architect. it didn't really work out. So anyway, but what I will say is that I look back on those times and I think I wish I was more prayerful in the in-between. In the in-between of like, what am I doing? What is this? Like, what am I, look, I wish that I looked a little bit more to the Lord. Not that would have changed the timeline. I don't think so. I think he had what was right for me in the right time in which it happened. But I think it would have settled me more. I think I spent a lot of time in an anxious state in which I was like, well, what does this mean? I'm in college. I'm not going to do that. So like, what am I doing now? Like, there's just a lot of like anxious circles that you can run. And I think if I looked more to the Lord in those times, I think it would have felt a little more settled. Like, he's got me, and he had me. Like, and still I worry about things that's why I have these 11s right here. It's like worry ward. Yeah, I know. I'm not doing Botox. It's okay. But worry ward, right? So it's always about like thinking about the future, and like I try more now to look to the Lord and pray to him and just know that he has me, and I have proof of it when I look back at like those times where I was unsettled and now where I'm at. So that's always fortifying. So I would just say, like, make sure you're staying consistent in prayer and make sure you're keeping your eyes on the prize, because he'll lead you to where you're going to go and you might not know, but that's probably would be my biggest advice to myself back in the day.
Wait.
Yeah.
Amy?
Yeah, I second that. I recognize that when I jump into like a dough day, when I do it in my own strength, there's the biggest difference, right? Like, before getting into that and like getting into the busyness of it and taking care of my kids and doing what I have to do, I think it is so important to like have the mindset of like, okay, I need to get into the word first and like prepare my heart and prepare my soul and do this to the glory of the Lord, because when we are doing it in our own strength, we're going to be even more exhausted than we would with him, right? It's going to like drain more out of you. So I definitely wish that I would have recognized that sooner, because it does make a big difference.
I agree. I would say just enjoy the journey. You're never going to arrive. I wrestled that with many years. Once I do this, I made it. I'm a singer now, but you never arrive. Enjoy the journey. Stay close to God. Let him lead you. And even now, I feel totally fulfilled and right where I'm supposed to be, but I know like God has more in store, and I'm just trusting him and surrendering him. So just enjoy the journey.
I think something I would have changed earlier is just asking for help. I think, I was working and I started my business before my son was born. And then once he was born, I just kept moving as things, like nothing really changed and like everything had changed. So I think I was suffering for a while, kind of on my own, not even really being able to verbalize it or kind of even understand it. I was just kind of going through the motions, and it was just very overwhelming and too much. So I think just recognizing that if you do decide to go back to work or start a side hustle, like there is a shift and a big change or some sort of change that needs to take place, whether it's maybe we need to hire help around the house, once a month, getting a cleaning person, or we need a little more help with the kids, someone to help pick up, need help with food, I need to figure out a different way to prepare meals moving forward. Like just like different systems I think need to change or shifts. And I wish that I realized that earlier. It was something that I struggled with for a while, and then eventually I was like, there needs to be some changes here to make this more functional for everyone, including myself.
Okay, I want to take the last few minutes. If anybody has any questions that you weren't able to submit or that just popped up right now, you ladies will be happy to answer them, hopefully. Caitlin.
Did anybody change careers completely from when you first graduated college or whatever to now? Like, did anybody change things?
I did. So I graduated with a career in psychology. I had no idea what I wanted to do with that when I graduated. I always loved kids. I knew I wanted to work but also have a family one day. So I thought, okay, it's either nursing or teaching in my mind. Those were the two options. So I was a teacher's assistant for 2 years at Orchard Elementary School in Ridgewood. And I loved the school. The school was fantastic. The children were great, but I was really unhappy in like the day-to-day work. And I didn't really see myself as a teacher. So I ended up going to Redeemer Presbyterian Church in the city. They have a career counseling center. I don't know if they still have it, but they did, I don't know, many years ago. And I did a career, kind of like a whole like weekend of like taking tests and speaking to a career counselor. And they said, you know, the reason why you feel kind of frustrated in your role is because you're a very like results oriented person. They're like, you would be more suited for like public relations, marketing, real estate, something that's very results oriented. And that was something that really clicked in my head. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of what's missing here. So I started networking and I got a job in a PR agency in the city. And I worked in PR for many years. And I just felt like it was a much better fit for my personality. And then from there, I did a switch and started my own business eventually.
I actually, before I became a nurse, I was a social worker, and I enjoyed that portion of it, but I wanted to kind of dive into the medical field a little more. But then, kind of going along the lines of what you were saying, I didn't know what I wanted to do with nursing, and it turned out that my personality is more leadership focused. So that's why I ended up going into nursing leadership. When I became a bedside nurse, I realized I also don't like, you know, taking care of patients, which kind of doesn't make sense. But, you know, kind of a little plug for nursing. There's so much you can also do with that field, as you were saying with her name, Marissa. You know, she's doing telehealth and, you know, a multitude of different things. And a lot of the nurses that I hire, because I'm in charge of a unit, is second degree nurses. So I was a second degree nurse. There's so many programs out there that you can even do online. If you are thinking about nursing, you can take one slow class at a time, and you can go into a field of so many different opportunities. So you don't just have to work in a hospital. You can, you know, work remotely. And for me, you know, I enjoy the operations part of the hospital setting. So it just shows that even if you started in one direction, you can go in so many different directions. And if you decide 5 years from now, I want to go back to school and I want to do something else, you know, there's so many things you can do, and there's so much flexibility now, I feel like, with school versus years ago it was you had to sit in the classroom and you had to go to every class, versus you can literally be on your laptop on your couch and take a class for 8 weeks and take a 6-month break and then go back, you know. So there's so many different things you can do.
I just have a segue kind of into that. I think no matter what your background is or like what your degree is, and those skills that you develop on your job, you can always transfer them into something else. I think in one of like the later questions, something that has come up that has been like a helpful tool for me as I've kind of transferred more into wanting to do more remote work has been LinkedIn. When you go in and you can like put your skills in, and then it feeds you jobs that kind of use those skills. And I mean, I think a lot of people would be surprised just when you look at your skill set, you look at what your experience is in, how many different avenues that can translate into. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be full-time work. There's part-time work, contract work, you know, night shift, day shift. Like there's just always so many different options out there, and especially now that remote work is such a huge industry as well.
I love that point, because if you look at everything you do, staying home with your kids all day, and you put it in a chat GPT or whatever that fancy AI stuff is, it will spit out that you are the most amazing person alive. So I encourage you all to go home and see how fabulous you are. Any other questions before we break for a few discussion minutes, and then we're picking up kids at 10 after 11, please? All right, well, thank you, all of you. You're all very inspiring to me, and I'm sure to the whole room, and it's beautiful to see how many options there are out there. Whenever you're ready, if and when ready to get out there and do something else, or it's okay to just rest and be with your kids at home as well too. So there's not a lot of rest, but you know, not bringing home a paycheck is also okay. And I know we have many moms in the room in that position, but you guys are definitely inspiring for when I want to make that jump. So thank you from everyone in the room. And I think we have a special raffle.
Just for the panel participants. Okay, so I don't know where this came from. I don't know where this came from, but it was in our giveaway box, and so somehow it must have been donated to us. But it's really, really cool. It's called "Keep My Hustle Holy," which is like, right? Isn't that funny? And it's like a business tracker. Like, it's really cool. There's no dates on it or anything like that. So, I figured it would be just a good way to like say thank you. I wish I had one for every one of you guys. Thank you all. I don't know. I even found touching to me because it's just, you know, right now I don't get paid for what I do, but I love what I do, and I love being able to volunteer, and I love being able to just be involved, and I love being able to be home with my girls. But you know, like everything that we do can have eternal value, and everything, you know, is for a purpose, and I think for all of us that God has us where we're meant to be, and so thank you all for sharing that. Okay, so keep my hustle holy, 302-606.